So allow me to introduce Bart. I did introduce you already, Bart, but one more time. So Bart is the VP at Primal, which is a company focused on advanced semantic synthesis and knowledge representation for legal knowledge management for legal teams. So Bart is an experienced product leader and entrepreneur, and he has done extensive work in AI. He graduated from the University of Waterloo with a degree in physics and computing and an MBA from Wilfrid Laurier University. He was a co-founder of SocialPeeks, and he's interested in AI topics ranging from product development, decision science, and entrepreneurship. So without any further delay, Bart, the online floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, so welcome again, everybody. Sorry for the technical delays here. So today I'm going to be presenting a narrow use case in the application of AI in legal, and specifically in the automation of legal research. And this is based on the Lexica KM platform, which was a pilot project we did with the Gowling, which is a global legal firm, and their Canadian team that's based in Ottawa. The presentation will mainly focus on the legal research capabilities of the platform and its AI component. So first, before I go into kind of the AI details, I'm just going to kind of summarize the kind of what led to the project. And then first, I want to kind of go over the business objectives that legal firms are going after when implementing some of the AI systems. So one of the first ones is to optimize legal operations, to make them more efficient, reduce time. The second one is to productize the firm's knowledge assets. And specifically, what we mean is to gain value from the firm's historical research assets, such as advice previously provided to clients, legal opinions, and litigation settlements. And then the third one, generate operational insights. So what we mean there is legal firms want to understand, interpret, and quantify caseload statistics and create customizable reports with key metrics to help them manage performance of their teams. So that was the business objective. Now, what's driving some of the business objectives? So there is kind of the legal's new normal, and the new normal was even before the COVID and the epidemic. So the first one is a very kind of peculiar case. So we have Ontario judges pushing back on excessive legal research fees. So basically what a judge has done in a recent litigation case, the judge has capped the costs awarded in a liability personal injury judgment, writing that the use of artificial intelligence should have significantly reduced the counsel's preparation time. And the judge's specific comments were as follows: computer-assisted legal research is a necessity for the contemporary practice of law and computer-assisted legal research. And then further to that, he also commented saying that computer-assisted legal research provides a more comprehensive and more accurate answer to a legal question in shorter time than the conventional research methodologies. So basically what that means is that the legal firms have to become more efficient at performing legal research. The second point here is the knowledge management, sharing, and access. So this is where we see a lot of AI tools come into their own to help simplify knowledge discovery, connect and structure know-how from different sources, keep knowledge up to date, and deliver context within workflows. We also see growth of solutions that help to centralize data to streamline and optimize the search experience. The next bullet point, asynchronous working. So while most lawyers have quickly embraced synchronous tools to support remote working during lockdowns, like video calls and instant messaging, Many haven't yet been able to leap to asynchronous platforms. And then the last point I want to make here is that monitoring of legal operations. So law firms need to find ways to measure the productivity of workers to help them maintain productivity, ensure quality standards are met, and increase transparency. Just a quick summary here. So all the bullet points would have been valid even before the pandemic and the lockdowns, but the last 3 bullet points are accelerating given the lockdowns and the remote working conditions of lawyers. Okay, so here what I want to kind of quickly show, just to set the stage, what's actually happening in a legal firm from a knowledge distribution. And there's a problem here that we want to highlight as well. So in a legal firm, a general example is there's a client matter that comes in, and the client matter could be a case from a corporation, could be a question, and it comes to a lawyer in various forms. It could be over a phone call, email, conversation, an in-person meeting. And then the lawyer basically is trying to figure out the answer or an opinion or advice for the client. So the lawyer would use his or her own experience, perhaps ask a colleague, would do also research online and consult current laws to formulate a legal research artifact. And then that artifact would get sent back to the client, but it also gets archived somewhere in the law firm. And that somewhere in the law firm could go various ways. So could end up in emails, in the lawyer's email, could end up in databases, and could also end up in cloud storage and other legal platforms. So cloud storage could be, as an example, SharePoint. And the research artifacts are mainly text documents, are unstructured, so they're kind of scattered. They could be scattered all over the law firm. And then the problem that this presents is that there's no really centralized a place where everything gets kind of deposited. So if the lawyer is trying to find that same document afterwards, he's potentially got to look for in 3 different places. And any of those places could have a very poor search experience to begin with. So what we're trying to do with Lexica platform is we're saying, okay, all these locations where research artifacts might end up, we want to consolidate them or have access or have searchable access to them using the Lexica platform. So we want to provide the lawyers with legal research capability to access the legal documents, and a collaboration piece where they can share and also collaborate with other lawyers based on the same legal assets. So now I'm going to come to the kind of what we call the legal search, where we solve the legal search problem. So far we kind of highlighted the fact that lawyers produce a lot of research artifacts. They get potentially scattered in different locations. Lexica can access all the locations or consolidate them, but there's still a search problem to be solved. And the search problem to be solved, I'm gonna go through the next various slides is gonna highlight them. And then the way I'm gonna present it is through examples of how the search problem is manifested in a legal context. Okay, so the first example I have is a search problem where the semantic context is poorly expressed or cannot be fully expressed in a keyword search. So as an example, on the left-hand side, there's a incoming client matter, and the incoming client matter has the context is about a murder. Now, the lawyer might think of, okay, murder, the legal term for murder is homicide. So if they go and try to do a keyword search homicide across their archives, they might produce a document that has the keyword homicide. So as an example, a law would get expressed using the keyword homicide. So the current law would get recalled to the search, but a bunch of other artifacts that have the concept of murder or homicide would not get recalled because they're expressed in a different semantic language. So a different client in the archive could have expressed murder in the keyword killed, or perhaps deaf, or some other kind of contextual language. So from a platform perspective, from an AI perspective, how do we solve that problem? So from an AI capabilities point of view, we're trying to create the concept of murder or homicide, and what does that mean in a broader semantic context. So in this slide, so this is basically will be a basic representation of what a homicide would mean. And then this goes beyond just synonyms or similar words that mean homicide. What we're trying to create here is kind of like an ontological representation of what homicide or murder would mean, and then use those concepts to do that semantic search across all the artifacts to pull out documents that do in fact are about homicide, but don't necessarily contain the word homicide or murder themselves. And they could be related to the criminal code, how criminal code views homicide and different degrees of murder, and etc. My next example here is also a semantic search example, but this example here, what we're trying to do is preserve the semantic context of the user's intent. So in this example, the incoming client matter is about a consent to treat a minor or child. And basically what that means is a permission to treat, or this could be a question for a psychologist. And the keyword search that the lawyer could do is, as example, consent to treat a minor. Now the search results from just a regular keyword search will try to locate the exact keywords. So we'll look at consent, treat, and minor. But we know from a semantic representation that treating is performing treatment, and then consent also can have different semantic representation. But the key part in this example is that we want to keep the minor as in the context of a person or a child versus the other meanings that a minor could have. So in the right-hand side, there's an example there where there's an archive document that's talking about a minor breach, which is a different semantic meaning from the context that's in the query search here. So we want to preserve that semantic context. My next example here, and then this is kind of the what drives out the kind of the capabilities of Primal's AI here, and this deals with some of the small data problems that we see in corporate document storage. So there could be concepts or topics that are represented in the documents that are outside, that are not very that are not generic. So an example here, I have a concept called Form 37. Now, Form 37 has a meaning within the corpus of documents within the legal firm, within that specific corpus, but it might have a non-meaning, or there's really no meaning outside of that corpus. So if somebody asks what is Form 37, they could produce a whole bunch of different answers, but there is a specific meaning in the corpus. So using our technology, what we're trying to do here is create a semantic representation of some of these specific concepts that are part of the corpus, and then connect them to more general meaning that then can be used to search the legal documentation. So an example here, what I have is the Form 37 in this particular example is about compliance, is about FIPA, WSIB, insurance. It's basically about consent to disclose information. So all these other concepts will be used in terms of the search to recall some of the documents that that the lawyer is looking for, even though the exact keyword Form 37 might not even appear in the documents. And that this is really the key for one of the small data problems that we're trying to solve within enterprise data. My next example here, so we've talked about finding documents based on keyword search and semantic expansion, and then now this is an example where sometimes lawyers have a document in front of them, and what we're trying to do is automate the search experience for them. So instead of the lawyer trying to figure out what type of query should I formulate from the document that I have, we're just basically automating the query generation for them by creating a semantic representation of a document, and behind the scenes kind of searching documents that match the same semantic representation in the context of the facts that are presented in that document. So an example here, a lawyer might have a client matter in front of them. Could be an email from a client, a description of a case they're working on. They would search specifically on that document. And on the retrieval side, on the result side, we would retrieve similar documents based on the similar semantic representation of that document. Now the document here, it could be, again, it could be an email, it could be a PDF, or it could be even abstract as a web page. So for example, the lawyer could point to a web page, could be a law, could be an opinion that they've written, and that could also serve as the input to the search as that document. So it doesn't have to be like a Word doc or always a PDF that's input. It could be any document that potentially lives on the web. Here's just an example of how document-to-document might look like in the UI. So in here, what we have is a way to navigate by searching documents that you find in search. So if you have a search result, you can navigate and discover relevant cases through a document-to-document search by, for example, here clicking the button more like this, and essentially that does more document-to-document search, recalls more documents that are similar. Next example here I have in the search problem is that we solve is also finding, instead of producing documents that are semantically similar, we also want to find people that are experts that have worked on topics or research artifacts based on the user's query. So in this example, the input basically is a client matter, and the client is asking to do a corporate rebranding in 10 countries. So what a lawyer would usually do is trying to find, in a global legal firm, it will try to find colleagues that have done such a work in those jurisdictions. And one of the problems facing that is usually they have to go and through their network ask a bunch of people if they know somebody. Perhaps there is lawyer profiles that they can search, but the problem with lawyer profiles is they're static. Over time they get stale. And what we're proposing here is to kind of a real-time search for best profile. and we're trying to let the artifacts speak for themselves. So the query would look for research artifacts based on their semantic meaning, locate the research artifacts, and find out who are the authors of those artifacts. And the authors are going to be the expert or the people that we would qualify for this specific exercise to find the expert person that a lawyer is looking for in a global firm. Just quick summary here. So what we talked about is AI systems that can automate legal research tasks. So AI systems can automate legal research tasks that are usually done by paralegals and junior lawyers, whose work can consist of shoulder taps and duplicate research tasks. The AI will also augment the capabilities of lawyers, and we see the impact of AI on legal services work suggests that while it may replace humans in some tasks, it will also change the work of those who are not replaced. And then the last point I want to make here is lawyers will continue to perform their traditional tasks, but faster and more efficient. So lawyers will continue to perform their traditional tasks, providing advice, interacting with clients, but in doing so, benefit from the AI-enabled legal services, which has the effect of enhancing their own productivity. And then the last point here is just basically what I'm trying to say here is that the legal profession is a very a relationship-driven profession. So relationships with clients are always going to be maintained, and putting in AI and to replace a lawyer, to replace that relationship will be very difficult in the short term. So what we're suggesting here is that augmenting the lawyers with AI capabilities is probably the best bet in the short term to increase their productivity. Just a couple of notes here on additional supported use cases. So the examples here I showed, they're in the context of legal, but we see the expansion of the same kind of search technology in use cases such as insurance, claims processing, obviously client support, tier 2 client support, where more complex questions get asked, and also enterprise people search. Just a quick quote from one of our partners. So Todd Burke is the partner at Gowning. So this is one of the pilot we did with his team. This is one of his quotes, a dream come true. So it made a huge difference in their team, not only from the accessing the research artifacts and making the team more productive, but also from the collaboration piece, given their team is spread across Canada. So they have lawyers working on the cases from BC all the way to Ottawa, and then a lot of the times they have to access the same legal artifacts, so it made a big difference in their team at Gowling. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening, everybody, and happy to take any questions now.
Thank you, Bart. This is Ashok, and again, I'm standing in for Vijay. Vijay had to be called away on an emergency unexpectedly, so I apologize. So any questions for Bart? You can, as usual, you can type in the questions. Bart will be able to see it, otherwise I can also read it out. So maybe while we are waiting for questions, let me ask one from, so I'm an outsider, I'm not an expert in this, but while you were speaking, I was wondering sort of what kind of obstacles have you seen or do you see in lawyers sort of taking up support systems like this? Are they familiar with using tools like this? Do you see something specific about sort of search tools like this that are difficult for them to adapt? what kind of obstacles do you anticipate?
You know, I think there's the legacy systems is one obstacle. I think a lot of lawyers have a lot of data, but again, that they're sitting in emails, legacy, storage. So when we propose a new platform, one of the challenges is how do I access or move my historical data, which could be years. So there's that kind of that data engineering problem to be solved, just to moving data into a new system, perhaps starting from scratch. So there's that challenge, but we do see teams becoming more tech savvy, especially as junior lawyers come in from schools, and they're more tech savvy in general. So they're easier for them to adapt into new technologies, essentially in the kind of the online platforms. Yeah.
Right, and I think this legacy data, like you mentioned, it's probably in different formats, different systems. So pulling them together is a practical challenge. So I don't see any questions from the audience. If there are no further questions.
There is actually one more question from Paul.
Right, so there's a question from Paul Benedetti. He says, any advice for students studying law? Should they begin to learn how to interact with these techniques and tools?
Yes, I think that's a really good point. I think the recommendation is yes. I recommend students be aware how to know the next generation of search tools work, how to become more efficient at your work, how to produce faster opinions, strategy, writing, whether it's writing documents or even storing your data that you produce even at the school that can be retrieved faster and better than just storing them in some file folder. So I think students even at law school can be more proficient or become more efficient at these kind of the legal tasks, and using some of the kind of the out of the box tools that exist. Yeah.
Thanks. Do they get training, this kind of training as part of the education?
I'm not aware. I have never been at a law school, and so I don't know. We mainly kind of technology company that provide the platform from lawyers, and I guess what we're hearing from lawyers is that a lot of the junior lawyers that we work with that were on the pilot, they were actually quite tech savvy, and they were able to onboard and figure out how to use the platform very quickly. So I don't think that the digitization is not the barrier. I think it's just more kind of the behind the scenes, the mechanics, the moving data, the IT integration. Probably that's going to be the challenge.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bart? So if not, thank you, Bart. Hamza has just posted a link to the virtual booth for the networking session, which I guess starts at, Hamza, I guess it starts right away, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Bart, again, and I apologize for Vijay being called away unexpectedly.
Okay,
thank you.
No problem. Thank you.